Picture this. You're alive 40,000 years ago. No calendar, no name for the year, just another cold morning. Your hair hasn't been cut in longer than you can remember. It's tangled into your beard, matted with dirt, grease, and the smoke of 100 fires. There's no comb, no mirror to even see what you look like. Just knots so thick they catch on branches when you walk through the forest, so heavy they get in your eyes right when a predator moves in the grass ahead of you. Now imagine dealing with that for your entire life, with nothing but a sharp rock and someone you trust standing behind you. For more than 99% of human history, there is no such thing as a barber. No scissors, no mirrors, no shops. Start with the obvious question. Why would hair even matter to someone whose main concerns were food, predators, and shelter? Because hair wasn't cosmetic. It was practical and sometimes dangerous. Long, matted hair could fall into a fire while someone was cooking or sitting close for warmth, and a single spark catching an oily, unwashed hair was a real injury waiting to happen. In a fight, whether against a rival human or a cornered animal, loose hair was something an opponent could grab and use as a handle. During a hunt, hanging across the eyes at the wrong moment could mean missing the one clean shot at a running animal, or missing the moment a predator was closing in from behind. There was also the matter of heat. Early humans moved constantly across open savanna, through dense forest, up mountains and down again. A thick mat of hair trapped heat and sweat against the skin, which in a hot climate wasn't comfortable. It was dangerous, raising the risk of overheating during exactly the kind of sustained physical effort that hunting and long-distance travel demanded. And then there was what lived inside it. Matted, unwashed hair was a breeding ground for lice, ticks, and infection, in a world with no soap, no medicine, and no way to treat a wound that turned septic. A tangle of hair wasn't just inconvenient, it was a standing health risk, every single day. So hair management wasn't vanity, it was survival maintenance. The same category as keeping a wound clean or keeping your feet dry. Homo habilis and Homo erectus. The earliest evidence we have of deliberate hair and body grooming doesn't come from razors, it comes from stone. As early as 2.5 million years ago, early hominins were napping sharp flakes of flint and obsidian, tools originally made for butchering meat and scraping hides. Those same edges, thin enough to slice, sharp enough to draw blood if handled carelessly, would have worked just as well on hair as on a carcass. There's no direct fossilized haircut sitting in a museum. Hair doesn't preserve the way bone does. But archaeologists have found something almost as telling. Stone flakes with wear patterns that don't match hide scraping or meat cutting. Some researchers argued these edges were used for finer, more careful work, the kind you'd need to trim something close to skin without cutting it open. By the time Homo erectus was spreading out of Africa, sharp-edged stone tools were already old technology, and a species walking into new climates, new predators, and new competition wasn't likely to ignore a free, sharp tool sitting in their hand. There's one piece of evidence in this story that almost nobody expects, and it comes from an insect most people would rather not think about. Humans carry two different kinds of lice: head lice, which live in hair, and body lice, which live in clothing and only visit skin to feed. Geneticists compared the DNA of both species and found something remarkable. Body lice split off from head lice roughly 100,000 years ago, evolving specifically to survive in fabric instead of fur or hair. That number matters because it means clothing, real clothing, worn regularly enough to support its own population of insects, is at least that old, which tells us something indirect but powerful about hair itself. If humans by that point were covering large parts of their bodies, hair on the head and face became one of the last places lice, and the problems that came with them could still take hold. That's exactly the kind of pressure that would push a species toward doing something about it, whether that meant closer grooming, shorter styles, or simply cutting the problem off at the source. Before there were haircuts, there was grooming, and that behavior is older than our species entirely. Chimpanzees and other primates spend enormous amounts of time picking through each other's fur, removing dirt, insects, and debris. It's not just hygiene. It's how primates build trust, calm each other down, and reinforce social bonds. Early humans almost certainly did the same thing, except our version came with an upgrade, hands free enough and minds developed enough to eventually pick up a tool instead of just fingers. That single shift from grooming with hands to grooming with an instrument may be one of the quietest but most important moments in this whole story. It turns hair care from something purely biological into something technological. For a long time, Neanderthals were imagined as shaggy, unkempt brutes. The next time you sit down in a barber's chair, it's worth remembering what that moment actually replaced. Not a service, a relationship. For most of our history, cutting someone's hair wasn't a transaction. It was one of the clearest signs of trust two humans could give each other. A sharp edge, a bare scalp, and the assumption that the person holding the blade had your best interest in mind. The chair changed. The mirror changed. The tools changed almost beyond recognition. But that basic trade, trust for a blade near your skin, is one of the oldest continuous habits in the human story.